Hey everyone, let's jump right into this explainer titled Confirm Meaning, Figurative Language Poetry Collection. Today, we are going to decode poetry, and we're not just going to read it passively. No, we are treating this like an active, thrilling investigation. Think of yourself as a literary detective where every single word is a clue. Today, we're going to learn exactly how to process that evidence.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be going through 1. Decoding the poetry myth. 2. Connotation versus denotation. 3. Our figurative language toolkit. 4. Modeling a created stanza. 5. Pause checks and practice. And then we'll wrap up with 6. A recap and transfer task.
All right, Section 1. Decoding the poetry myth. Let's cackle a huge misconception right off the bat. There's this incredibly common myth out there. A lot of readers just assume poetry is mostly window dressing, that poets use figurative language as mere decoration or just pretty words to make a poem sound nice. If we want to be serious readers, we have to completely throw that myth out the window. Actually, as this quote from our source material brilliantly points out, poetry requires a careful, deliberate use of language. A poem is honestly like a precise, well-oiled machine. Every single word does heavy lifting to construct meaning, convey emotion, and establish a mood. Nothing is in there just to look pretty. It is specifically designed to make you think and feel something.
Moving into Section 2. Connotation versus denotation. Let's unlock those deeper layers.
To really investigate that poetic machine, we need to break down how we process vocabulary. On one hand, you have denotation. That's literally just the cold, hard dictionary definition of a word. But on the other hand, you have connotation, which is the emotional weight, the associations and the implied meanings that a word carries in your head. A word might have a completely neutral denotation, but pack a massive positive or negative connotation. So when you're tackling a complex poem, you can't just guess a meaning and move on. You've got to use this 3-step loop. Step 1. Propose a meaning based on your very first read. Step 2. Test that meaning against the context clues, both in that specific line and across the whole poem. And Step 3. Revise your interpretation based on the evidence you found. You're constantly revising your reading like a true investigator.
Okay, Section 3. The figurative language toolkit. Let's gear up.
First up in our toolkit is the simile. A simile explicitly flags a comparison between two completely unlike things. It is super easy to spot because it uses specific comparative words like such as, like, or as. It's basically the poet waving a flag and saying, hey, look over here, I'm directly comparing these two objects for you. Next, we have the metaphor. Now, this is a much more direct, forceful equation. A metaphor compares essentially unlike things by renaming a subject, but without using those explicit comparison words. So instead of saying something is like something else, a metaphor insists that it is that other thing, which forces you, the reader, to dig for that hidden connection. Then there's personification. I absolutely love this one. This is a tool where a poet breathes human life, emotions, or actions into non-human entities, inanimate objects, or abstract concepts. It's brilliant because it lets us relate to the non-human world by giving it characteristics we already understand as human beings.
Finally, we've got imagery. And hey, imagery isn't just about painting a visual picture for the eyes. It actually engages all 5 of your senses. We're talking visual, auditory for sound, olfactory for smell, tactile for touch, and gustatory for taste. Imagery anchors abstract ideas into a physical, relatable reality that you can practically feel happening right in front of you.
Section 4. Modeling a created stanza. Let's put these tools to work. So take a look at this clearly labeled created stanza. We built this specifically using nature vocabulary inspired by our poetry resources, focusing on a crocus, which is an early spring flower. Let's read it. The crocus whispers to the dawn, a golden star upon the lawn. It wakes as quick as struck matchlight and chases off the velvet night.
This brilliantly illustrates exactly why our tools matter. If we strictly use denotation, our literal reading is, well, totally absurd. Think about it. A literal flower is talking, it turns into a massive ball of burning gas from outer space, catches fire, and then physically sprouts legs to run and chase the nighttime. No way, that makes zero sense. But when we apply our figurative reading, we unlock the true meaning. A bright yellow spring flower is blooming incredibly quickly in the early morning, signaling the end of a soft, dark night. See the difference?
Section 5. Pause checks and practice. Yep, it is your turn to do some detective work. Here is pause check 1. In the stanza we just read, I want you to propose a meaning for the phrase, velvet night. Test it against the context of the poem and revise your interpretation. Go ahead and pause the explainer right now, work through that 3-step loop yourself, and hit play when you're ready to confirm your reasoning.
Welcome back. So, did your loop look something like this? First, we propose the literal denotation. The night is literally made of soft velvet fabric. Next, we test it against the context. Well, literal fabric makes no sense covering an outdoor garden where a real flower is blooming. Finally, we revise. Velvet carries a strong connotation of thick, soft darkness, so the revised meaning is that the night was deeply dark, heavy, and comforting before that bright flower bloomed.
Spot on. All right, here's pause check number 2. Identify which specific tool from our figurative language toolkit is used in the line "It wakes as quick as struck match light." Pause the explainer now to lock in your answer.
And we're back. The correct tool from your kit is a simile. This is brilliantly illustrated by the comparison of the blooming flower speed to the sudden bright burst of a striking match. The undeniable evidence that makes it a simile rather than a metaphor is right there. It uses the specific comparative word as.
Finally, Section 6, our recap and transfer task. Let's lock this in.
Here is your 3-sentence recap to summarize our entire structural investigation into poetry analysis. Poetry uses deliberate, precise figurative language, not just decorative words, to convey deep meaning. Readers must distinguish a word's literal denotation from its emotional connotation. To confirm meaning, you must continually loop through proposing, testing against context, and revising your interpretation.
Now for our transfer task, we are looking at an authorized text from our sources. Lord Alfred Tennyson's famous poem, The Eagle. We are going to focus specifically on the very first line, which reads, "He clasps the crag with crooked hands."
I'm going to leave you with this final provocative question to test your reading independently. Apply your brand new toolkit to Tennyson's line. How does testing this personification against the context of a bird change your literal proposed meaning? Seriously, what does a bird with hands really mean when you revise your interpretation against the rugged context of nature? Think deeply about that, and keep investigating every single poem you read.